The earth was full of violence. Humanity's wickedness spread like a shadow, corrupting all of creation. People's hearts had hardened, their thoughts inclined only toward evil, and their actions reflected endless chaos. God, in His holiness, looked upon the earth and saw its inevitable destruction. His eyes, full of sorrow, beheld the desolation that humankind had caused to what He had lovingly created. The evil in the world was so great that the Lord regretted having made mankind, and in His heart the sadness was profound. He decided to wipe from the face of the earth everything He had made: humankind, animals, creeping creatures, and the birds of the sky. God's decision was final. Divine judgment was about to fall upon the world. But amidst the darkness, there was a light. Noah, a righteous and blameless man, found favor in the eyes of God. He walked with God in an age where few chose the path of righteousness. Noah did not yield to the corruption that dominated his time. His life stood as an exception in the chaos, and for this reason, he was chosen for a mission that would change the course of human history. God spoke to Noah, revealing His plans. A flood would come to purify the earth. Torrential rain would cover everything, erasing the wickedness that had spread throughout creation. But Noah would not be alone. God commanded him to build an ark, an enormous vessel made of cypress wood, with compartments and a pitch cover. Noah was to bring his family and 2 of each kind of animal, male and female, to preserve life after the flood. But with you, I will establish my covenant. You will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Genesis 6:18. What seemed impossible was becoming reality. The world was about to be purified, but a new beginning would arise for those who were obedient. Noah, with unwavering faith, accepted the calling and began to prepare the ark, without question, trusting only in God's promise. Noah, in obedience to God's word, began to build the ark with silent but unshakable diligence. Every nail, every plank of wood was an act of faith. Its dimensions were immense, 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. A colossal boat, designed to withstand the furious waters that were approaching. The Lord had instructed Noah in every detail. Compartments to preserve the animals, a window and a door on the side, all sealed with pitch to ensure the ark would float on the turbulent waters. As Noah worked, the people around him mocked. They saw the construction as absurd, unable to understand what was about to happen. "What is this, Noah?" they asked. "There has been no rain in our land. Why build such a large ark?" But Noah did not respond. He knew that God's word was stronger than any human mockery. As days and weeks passed, he continued his task, unwavering. As the ark took shape, Noah's heart filled with hope, but also with sorrow. He knew many would refuse to listen, that humanity would reject the mercy being offered. Still, he trusted in God. Each nail hammered in was a silent prayer, a plea for salvation, for those who might still hear God's voice. And finally, the ark was complete. God gave clear instructions for Noah and his family to enter. They were the first to enter, followed by the animals, 2 of each kind, male and female. God's creation, in all its diversity, was being preserved within the structure that stood as a symbol of hope amidst impending judgment. Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives were now safe inside the ark. God shut the door, sealing it with His own hand. What had seemed like an endless wait had now come to an end. Then, the clouds began to gather in the sky, a foreboding sign of what was to come. On the 17th day of the 2nd month, the waters began to fall. The first raindrops hit the earth, and in an instant, the sky broke open. The flood began. the fountains of the great deep opened, and the rain did not cease, flooding the earth with relentless waters. The world that Noah had known was submerged. The water covered even the highest mountains, and everything that breathed and lived outside the ark perished. The doors of the ark were shut, and Noah and his family were safe, but the rest of humanity was adrift, powerless before the force of God's judgment. The waters rose, covering everything. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain did not stop. The sound of the drops hammering against the ark was deafening, and the relentless movement of the waters made the journey agonizing. Inside the ark, Noah and his family were in tense silence, though protected. The darkness of judgment fell upon the world, but they were immersed in waiting, trusting in God's promises. As the waters dominated the earth, the people and creatures who had been disregarded drowned. Chaos was absolute. The land, once lush and teeming with life, was now an endless sea. Every tree, every mountain that had once stood as a symbol of the earth's stability was now submerged. The earth was an immense mass of water, with no visible sign of life. Inside the ark, Noah could not help but wonder how long God's judgment would last. The uncertainty of the future loomed over him and his family. Each day inside the ark was a test of patience, but also of faith. Every new dawn, they looked through the window, but there was nothing but water, no land in sight, no visible hope that the judgment would end. As the days passed, Noah sought a sign that the earth would begin to heal. He sent out a raven, but it did not return. He then sent a dove, but the bird also found no place to rest. The symbol of hope seemed far off, and isolation felt eternal. But after 7 days, the dove returned with an olive leaf in its beak. It was the first clear message that the waters were receding and that life was beginning to renew. Noah's heart swelled with joy and relief. He knew that God was fulfilling his promises. The sign of the olive leaf was a promise of restoration, that the judgment was ending and the earth was being renewed. The Lord spoke to Noah and his family to leave the ark. They were about to see the earth renewed, and God's judgment had passed. The land was dry and ready to begin again. Noah and his family, along with the animals, stepped onto dry land, feeling solid ground beneath their feet once more. Creation, once corrupted, now had the chance to bloom again. After the flood, Noah, his family, and the animals stepped onto a renewed earth, as if everything had been restored to its original state. The peace following the storm brought deep relief, but also great reflection. Creation had been purified, but what would come next? How could humanity begin again after having failed so deeply before? Noah, in gratitude and reverence, built an altar to the Lord. He offered burnt sacrifices, signaling his acknowledgement of God's power and mercy. The Lord, upon seeing the pleasant aroma of the sacrifice, made a promise. He would never again destroy the earth with a flood. Despite the evil that still resided in human hearts, God's mercy would prevail. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. Genesis 8:22. Then God made a covenant with Noah and all of creation. He established an eternal pact, committing to maintain the earth's seasons and cycles intact, without ever again destroying it by flood. To seal this promise, God placed the rainbow in the clouds as a perpetual sign of his covenant with mankind and all the creatures of the earth. This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Genesis 9:12-13. The rainbow, with its vibrant colors, became a constant reminder of God's faithfulness. Every time a storm passed and the sun shone through the clouds, God's people could look to the sky and remember that judgment had already occurred. and now the earth was under divine grace. God blessed Noah and his sons, telling them, "Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth." Genesis 9:1. Humanity was given a second chance, with a renewed mission to populate the earth, live according to God's commandments, and honor the Creator. Noah and his family became the founders of a new era, but God also established laws to ensure that humanity would not fall into corruption again. He declared that human life was precious, and those who shed human blood would be held accountable. The laws of morality and justice were established, and God's covenant with Noah was not only a reminder of the past, but a foundation for the future of mankind. The flood story came to an end, but the story of a restored humanity was just beginning. The rainbow shone in the sky, symbolizing trust and divine grace. The cycle of life would continue, with God walking beside those who chose to follow His ways until the end of time. In the next video, we will see how humanity, now restored, faces new challenges, and how God's promises continue to guide the steps of His children. The story of a new generation begins to take shape, but the danger of human arrogance never disappears completely. Stay tuned as we explore the rise of new nations and the lessons that arise along Noah's path and his descendants.